Hey guys, we've got a 2021 200 Series Land Cruiser in the shop today. It's got 190 miles and we are going to put a leveling kit on it. It's a silver exterior color and it's got the Terra interior. Really nice. So I'm going to do a little how-to on how to put a leveling kit in. You can get these spacers from Toyota, but I'm on the driver's side, and so the first thing you've got to do is release the pressure for the KDSS system. So if you're looking down, you can follow the driver's side bank cat and come back to about the middle of the frame, and there's a little guard right here, and you can see those two bolts. Those are the KDSS valves. So you want to be careful. You want to release those no more than 3 turns, and so this releases the pressure for the system. And KDSS is basically Toyota's version of a very special sway bar. This is part of it. This is the sway bar. Usually with most cars, that's a hydraulic piston. That's part of the KDSS. But most cars, it would just have an attachment from either the control arm on the lower control arm and then just go mount straight to the frame. These have a piston in the front and rear, and so it helps with body control, sway. I think they even say it helps with flex and all that good stuff. So before you get started, you've got to release the pressure on both of those bolts, back them out no more than 3 turns, and then we'll get started. All right, we're going to start on the passenger side, and before we start tearing everything down, I'll just walk you guys through it. So like I mentioned, you can put, Toyota actually makes a spacer for these. There's a part number. You need 2 of these. They've even got a little arrow right here that shows which way it sits. Obviously this side is out. So this spacer goes right underneath the coil bucket right here. So the first thing we need to do is take out these 4 top screws that hold it in place. And then after that, since we've already released the KDSS valves, you need to loosen a bunch of the suspension stuff so you can actually get everything to drop down in place, because in order to get the coilover out, it requires a decent amount of droop to get it out. So there's 2 bolts up under the spindle that we're going to take out. There are 2 22mm nuts. You guys probably can't really see it, but I'll go in further detail on that. Take those out. I always loosen the KDSS bolts. Don't take them all the way out because they're a huge pain to put back in. And then we're going to take the lower strut mount bolt out so we can drop the strut completely out. So I'm going to do that, and then I'll catch back up with you guys. Take the nut off, and then you can gently tap it out. And then once you have that, you can get a all right, bolts off. And this truck is so new, you can literally just loosen them and they'll come right off, which is so nice. Usually there's like a little corrosion and stuff, and you gotta put the wrench on there for a while. Okay, so now that all these bolts are off, so this is disconnected. These bolts under here disconnected, so you can literally move the whole spindle and hub out of the way, which is nice. The next thing we need to do is paint mark the cam bolts on the lower control arms. We're going to put paint marks on these. And so we're going to loosen these bolts, one right here and then this one back here, but we're going to paint mark on all four of them, so we know where to put them after we put everything back together. That way it's not completely out of alignment. It'll still need an alignment after the leveling kit, but this lets you get close enough. So we'll paint mark them, loosen them a little bit, and then that way the lower control arm is able to flex down a lot more, and then we can pull the coil out pretty quick. I just put 2 marks on each of them so you know. Doing this upside down left-handed is a lot of fun too. Okay. One thing that's different about the driver's side is in order to get this back bolt off, you've got to take this 12mm nut. There's a little bracket right here and it gets in the way, so I'll do that instead. I've also lost one of these nuts spinning it off. Never found it again, so just be careful spinning them off. Okay. And then grab it. 12, loosen this guy. Free advertisement for you guys. All right, and just let that dangle, and then you can get to this back one a lot easier. Okay, and then I already took the nut out on the back of this long bolt that goes through the low control arm, through the shock, and then you can just get that out. All right, so both sides are good to go. I usually start with the passenger side, putting that in first, because for whatever reason, how the KDSS works, the driver's side is always way easier to get out. So I do the other side first and then come back and do this side. So we'll swap sides real quick. All right, so what I do to make it easier, especially since you're by yourself, or if you are by yourself, get a cheater pipe and put it on top of the sway bar underneath the bump stop and lift down. And it's a little bit tricky, but push down while you lift up, and then it's out. So you don't need to take it out. But so this is the orientation they've written out on here. So you just put it on like so. Pop it on, and then I'll put it back. Hold it with one arm, find a nut, put the nut on here just to hold it in place. So it'll dangle, and then reverse what you just did. So get this cheater pipe back in here. Just be careful not to touch anything. All right. So we've got it back in. Then grab your long bolt that goes in the bottom of the control arm, and you'll kind of have to do a push down and well, let me get a screwdriver. Right. The bolt hole right here. So you're gonna have to push down and kind of pry at the same time. All right, so it started. Let me grab my hammer. All right. So that side's in. Before we button up that side, I'll go to the other side real quick. I can pick this up. There's a lot more room in here, so I'll do this again. And that required like no effort compared to the other side. Grab the spacer, out, goes out. Pop it in, put a nut on, hold it in place. And then we'll get our cheater bar, put it under the bump stop. And this side's way easier. So this side, you're actually gonna have to bring the control arm up some. So let me see, I might be able to get my hang on, let me grab a bottle jack. All right, so we're gonna put the bottle jack under the control arm because it's drooped down a lot more. And then just come up a little bit. That might have been a little too much. Of course, I forgot my hammer again. Like so. And then after that, we're just gonna reverse everything we did. I'll put the nut on the back of this long bolt that goes in the control arm. And I'm just gonna get all this finger tight. And then once the suspension and tires are back on the ground, I'll go in and tighten everything. And then I'll grab my other 3 bolts on the top of this bucket. Put these guys on. And then put this bracket on with a 12mm bolt. Okay. And then we'll go do the other side, and then we can drive in these KDSS bolts a little bit. Don't tighten them all the way though. And then you need these two bolts that go up back under here. I'll show you the easiest way to do that is to get a floor jack and put some pressure on the lower control arm to bring that gap up some. And then it's a lot easier. I'll show you guys in a second. Since we did that side, just wait until I get the jack out and do these two lower bolts. And then that back nut's decently tight. And then we'll put these two guys on. So we're just going to jack this up just a little bit to help put those two lower bolts in. Okay, got that one started. Don't tighten it down all the way. Make it easier for this back one to go in. And for your first time doing this, I would not recommend using an impact, but I've done like 50 of these. All right, so once you do that, you can tighten both of them. And I think the torque spec on these is 150 foot-pounds. So we'll do that. All right. And then really the last thing to do is we want to check, let me drop this jack down. We want to check the markings on the cam bolts where we use the paint pen and make sure everything is still lined up. And then we'll tighten them back down. Make sure the paint marks for these cam bolts are still aligned. This front one is, the back one is. I just like to put a wrench on this back one just to hold it in place. So when you start to tighten it, it doesn't move at all. And then I just snug it up a little bit. And then we'll tighten it once it's down on the ground again. Check the back ones. The back ones didn't move at all, but again, I'll put a wrench on this back nut to hold it in place. And then just cinch this one down. And then we'll do the same on this side. Okay, this one's good. It didn't move either. Tighten it down. This back one's good also. That one down. And And then you're good to put the tires back on. Put it on the ground. We'll go and tighten everything back to factory spec, and then turn the KDSS valves, close them, and then that's it.